So one of my guilty pleasures on social media, which I'm trying to do less of, but are these reels on Instagram, or I don't use TikTok, but I'm sure they're on TikTok, which are all about people's like morning or evening rituals, like the
Yeah.
ones that are like my 5 to 9 before my 9 to 5, or my 5 to 9 after my 9 to 5. I am so guilty. Like I could just watch an hour of those.
That's
I don't know what it
hilarious.
is about seeing into like people's, morning routine or whatever ritual they're talking about. I'm so captivated by.
There's this thing going on right now in Reels, right? Where it's like, what is it? We don't judge. We have you seen those?
I don't
Like
know.
we tell, but we don't judge. So people will tell like the secret of like, oh, hey, I did this, but we don't judge, right?
Right.
Uh, but I'm like, oh man, I'm totally judging certain people's morning routines, especially when it
Definitely.
comes to ice bathing. Or I know you might
Yeah,
have just got
I
one.
got it. I got one.
Yes, I'm judging you
I've only
hardcore.
I've only used it twice. For real though.
Well, in your defense, you got sick right before you got it. So, but I'm judging you. It's okay.
Well, you can judge me. It does really help. Honestly, I probably should have had one this morning. I was a little tired today, and so it would have woken me right up if I would have done it.
Okay, what's been the worst habit you've had or morning ritual?
Okay. I'm like, I used to smoke, so that would definitely be the worst habit that I had. In my morning ritual, when I don't really have a habit, it's like when I make a habit out of not doing, like I just get up, drink a bunch of coffee, scroll social media. That's probably the worst.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mine was definitely at one point I was picking up my phone and I was always watching something. Like I started watching a show like just to wake me up.
The worst is when you do that in bed. Not that I've ever done it, but
Now, hypothetically speaking, this is all hypothetical. I don't
exactly.
judge people who ice bath.
Well, whether you like ice baths or not, we are going to be talking today about our rituals. And this is such a great episode that we have. It's springtime. It's a great time to kind of reset and really think about like, how do you want to spring clean up your life? We talked about that in the last episode. And today, I'm so excited because we're going to give you some fresh ideas for freshening up your rituals. So stay tuned for this episode.
Welcome to another episode of Focus on This, the most productive podcast on the internet so you can banish distractions, get the right stuff done, and finally start loving Mondays. I'm Ken Freire here with my rock star co-host, Marissa Hyatt.
Hey,
Happy
happy Monday.
Monday!
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. This is like my favorite weather where you could be like wearing a hoodie and shorts and just go out in Nashville.
We
It's
are
just
both in our hoodies
awesome.
today. Yeah, nice and cozy.
Hey,
It's
I
kind of
love it.
dreary, a little dreary out, but spring's on the horizon, which I'm so grateful for. I'm so ready for like nice warm weathers. I need to see some things blooming. I need some color. I feel like
I
I'm
know.
sick of the bare trees.
The hardest part for me is that I want to see everything bloom, but I don't want all the rain.
Yes,
I
I
do not
know.
like the rain.
Same, same.
Oh.
Ken, I have to share something funny that we were talking about earlier this week when we were texting. You guys, if you are a longtime listener of the show, you know how many times there's two things that we say every single episode, which is Happy Monday. We always say it. And then we always say, until next time, stay
Stay
focused.
focused.
Well, I swear every time Ken and I are texting, we do a lot of voice text to each other. And almost every single time, especially if it's Monday, I want to say happy Monday. And then when we're finishing our conversation, I always want to say, until next time, stay focused. So I actually did it the other day in a voice text to you. And you guys, it's become a problem. So
Yes. I started laughing because I was like, sometimes I don't have a chance to listen to the audio at first, so I'm just skimming. But I went to the end and it just says, until next time. I'm like, did she just podcast me? Like, what just happened here?
Ah, it's pretty great. I feel like I want to do it too when we do our coaching calls with our clients. I always at the end, I'm like, all right, well, until next time. And then I always have this urge to say it. And then I don't think I've ever actually said
You
it. So
should. It's just like
I
a
should.
moniker at this point. We should
Yeah,
just do it. I'm gonna
exactly.
do it everywhere.
Okay. Well, we're so excited about talking about rituals today. This is actually one of my favorite topics because I think, like I was talking about, before we kind of jumped into the episode, this has really become like a phenomenon on social media where people, they're clearly curious how other people are spending their time. What are the day-to-day habits and things that they do to optimize their, productivity, their life, getting all the things done that they get done. And I am so excited because here at Full Focus, we have 4 specific rituals that really help to put like boundaries throughout your day. They help provide you with a rhythm, and I find that they're super grounding, and honestly, I really need a reset on these at this point. I feel like, there's I go through seasons where I'm really disciplined about this and I do great. And then there's inevitably a season that comes where I'm just not quite as disciplined. And I feel like I'm in that season
Yeah.
right now. And there's certain rituals I have that are pretty locked in, but like my morning ritual is, I really got to work on that.
Yeah.
So that actually is going to be my personal challenge after this episode is to
Ooh.
work on my morning ritual. So
I
I'm
like
excited.
it. Well, and it's to nobody's fault in some ways because if you think about it, right, your all of your rituals kind of go haywire during the holidays.
Totally.
And then at the beginning of the year, you're so focused on your goals, you're doing all these things to try to reach your goals. You kind of mess up all of your rituals,
Yeah,
right? And you try to add too much stuff to your morning ritual that it just goes bonkers. And that's why today I think it's really good that we're just pausing and saying, what should we do to get our rituals back in order so that we have good rhythms in life?
totally. Well, and I think, we've got 4 rituals like I talked about. Everybody's probably familiar with the evening and the morning ritual. Whether you actually would consider those a ritual for you, you do have a set of activities or habits that you're doing at those times of day, whether whether you like it or not, you actually do have one. But there's 2 rituals that often people don't know about. And I think these are arguably the most important, especially when it comes to being able to transition in and out of our workday and actually be able to be present in the rest of our life outside of work. So, those are our workday startup and our workday shutdown rituals. And honestly, I love these. When I talk to our coaching clients about this, Ken, and I really help them kind of craft that and what that looks like, they're always like, their mind is blown. And then my favorite thing is when they come back a week later and they're like, I've started doing this and it's been a total game changer for my life. So if that's you, if you've never heard of these rituals, or maybe you have, but you're like me and it's time to refresh them, you're going to get a lot out of today's episode.
Yeah, so let's just jump in. Think about the 4 types of questions that you need to ask yourself to start getting a refresh. All right. So, Marissa, what's question number 1?
Well, question number 1 is how much time do I really have? So I
Yeah.
feel like the most common mistake for rituals is over engineering them. And so I want to just caution because this is like me 100%. You know this, kid. I love to create like an elaborate ritual. And, on this podcast, we've talked a lot about something else that we call the ideal week. That has ideal in the name intentionally. We intentionally don't have that word as part of anything we're going to talk about today. This isn't about creating an ideal morning ritual. Like if everything was perfect in your life and you had, 4 hours in the morning to do whatever you wanted, how would you engineer it? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, let's get real about how much time do I really have, because we don't want this only to happen on days that are perfect. Because the truth is, if that's the case, they're basically never going to happen.
100%.
If you say you're going to get up at 5 a.m., but the truth is, you are somebody like me who is maybe not quite a morning person and you actually prefer to get up closer to like 6 or 7, then you're just immediately setting yourself up for failure. So be honest. On a typical day, how much time do you have for each ritual? So, like we talked about, we have 4 rituals: our morning and evening rituals, and then our workday startup and shutdown rituals. I like to say for the workday startup and shutdown, you should be taking no longer than 30 minutes on those two routine or those two rituals, because other than that, it's going to bleed too much into your workday. And those are really just a set of habits that you need to do every single day to kind of get going and then to shut work down so you can be present in the rest of your life. How much time, Ken, do you take for your morning ritual? Like you're married, you have four little kids, I'm single. So I'm curious to know, like, for our listeners, how does this look for somebody who's married with a bunch of little kids?
Yeah, so my morning ritual would depends on the day, but will be about 45 minutes to an hour if I'm working out that day,
Yeah.
right? If I'm not, I try really hard to wake up at the same time, but I don't, and I end up sleeping a little bit more. So then my ritual changes 30 minutes, like to 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Mine, on the other hand, is about 2 hours. And that's also, I would say, probably the difference between men and women also. Like, it just genuinely takes me longer to, like, get ready for the day than probably it does for you. I would assume you're not doing your makeup in the morning.
No, no,
Um,
no.
yeah.
I do
So,
have a skincare routine thanks to a certain Hyatt that
yes.
her name is Marissa.
I do have a little bit of a skincare obsession. Yeah, well, I think it's important to just say, like, there's no right or wrong amount of time here. We just want it to be realistic for you in the stage of life that you're in. So if you're somebody who you're like me, you have the ability to take longer in your morning routine, like take that if you want to. If you're somebody who's in a similar stage to Ken, where you may have little kids, or a spouse, or your life just looks different, you know, it may be more realistic to say, I'm going to take 45 minutes, for my morning routine.
Especially for those who might be listening to this and they like have a newborn or they have such a radical shift into their schedule, just be mindful of that constraint. So don't focus on your ideal, focus on the constraint. For example, I remember when we had our fourth child, newborn. Megan was actually the one who was super helpful in this. She sat me down. I was talking to her at the time, and she was like, "Ken, just be mindful that your routines are going to be completely out of whack. So just tell yourself if you have 5 or 10 minutes in the morning to yourself, that's it. It wasn't like 25, 30 minutes. Like, what are the most essential things that you need to do for those 5 or 10 minutes so you can start your day off strong?"
I think that's such wise advice. You can kind of think of this like a budget, where you want to quote spend your dollars, on paper before you actually have them. But in order to do that, you need to know how much money is coming into your bank account, right? And so you can think of the time that you have as those dollars. So how much time do you actually have to play with here? And it's going to be different for each ritual, and it's going to be different for different seasons in your life. Like, for Q4, for instance, when I'm at my busiest at work, that is probably going to shorten for me, whereas this time of year, I have a little more flexibility than I do, at the end of the year. So it could be different seasons during the year, during your life, but just be mindful of all of those things. And even if you have like just 15 minutes, or like you're saying, even just 5 minutes, you can work with that time. So there's no too little time and there's no too long of time. You just need to be realistic for yourself. So, Ken, why don't you take us into question two, because this is pretty relevant to what you were just talking about with the advice Megan gave you.
Yeah. Well, once you actually know how much time you have, then the question number two that you got to ask yourself is what is absolutely essential? You might call these tasks like your non negotiables. So, no matter what happens, these are the things you need to do, and they set the tone for the day. And this is really important because what ends up happening to most people is they try to just do a whole bunch of other things or try to say, oh, I'll work out for 5 minutes and then I'll do a shower. And it's like, no, no, no. Your non negotiables, like absolutely must have for you to feel like you won. So I remember going back to what Megan told me. She's like, Ken, what do you need to do to feel like you're set up to win for the day? I
Mhm.
said, I need to take a shower. I'm one of those people that I just have to shower every morning,
Yeah.
or else I feel grumpy and like just frustrated about life. I don't know
Yep.
why that is, but I just feel way better. Um, while I'm showering, I'm like praying, and then once I'm done praying, I'm just reading my Bible for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Or like that's all. Like it could be 45 minutes, that could be 10 minutes, right?
Totally.
But I'm off to the races. And that's super helpful for me to just get my mindset right for the day.
Yeah. And similarly, for my evening ritual, I feel like that's one of the rituals that I've done a really good job at maintaining. My morning ritual needs some work. Okay. So like that, like I said, that's going to be my challenge to myself after this is to refresh my morning ritual. If you're in our double win coaching program, I'll be sharing more about this as we go through our weekly calls and kind of crafting this together with you guys. I feel like my evening ritual is pretty great. And my non negotiables on that are I always do my skincare. That is like skincare has to happen no matter what. I love it. It feels rejuvenating to me. It feels relaxing. It feels like, okay, I've finally like washed the day off, and I something about like the little massage and it takes like 2 seconds. I could obviously like draw that out, but it's usually pretty short. And then I always put on some kind of like relaxing meditative music that's like super just, like I do the deep sleep playlist on Spotify a lot. There's several other playlists I listen to. And I always, even if it's for like 3 minutes, I always lay on my acupressure mat. If you guys have been listening to the podcast for a long time, this is one of my very favorite things that I have. It's a mat that has like spiky little points on it. It's super relaxing. It's calming for whatever reason, just grounds me and helps my body just go, like it's like an exhale for my body. And I do that while putting my legs up on the wall, which helps with circulation and lymphatic drainage. And I don't know, it's really relaxing to me. I think it's good for your nervous system regulation. But I always do that every single night, even if it's, like I said, for just a couple of minutes. It's usually around 15 minutes. And sometimes I meditate during that time and sometimes I don't. But those would 100% be my non negotiables in the evening.
And as you're trying to figure out like what are your non-negotiables, this actually leads to question number 3, right? Like what can you cut off? Marissa, take us through this little process of what can you cut off?
Well, like I talked about, it's really easy to make your rituals ideal and not reality. So I'm going to give you guys a challenge that there's probably at least one thing that you could cut from your daily rituals. Whether that's your morning ritual and you're just trying to squeeze in too many things in the morning, you could probably cut one of those and it's not going to have a dramatic effect on the rest of your day. Or maybe in your workday startup, this was true for me where previously, this was a few years ago, I felt like my morning or my workday startup could be like an hour long ritual if I wanted it to be. And it just, I wasn't doing it because it was taking way too long. And so I found myself putting it off because I felt like, oh, I only have 30 minutes today before my first meeting. So there's no way that I can even do it. So I'm just not going to do the whole thing. And Megan, similarly, was who challenged me and said, actually, it should only be 30 minutes. So you need to think about what can you cut. And I realized I was trying to do way too many things in that. And all I really needed to do was to set my daily big 3 for the day. What are the 3 most important tasks that I needed to get done, especially as it related to my goals and my projects? And then checking email, Slack, and then reviewing my calendar. Literally, like that's my workday startup ritual. And it has been such a game changer. But previously, I was trying to do all these KPIs in there and make sure I was responding to every single email and every single Slack message that came through. It was just like way too much. So, what is something that you can cut from your ritual?
And there might be other things. If you think about all 4 rituals, right? Like maybe the morning ritual, it might be not looking at your phone first thing. It might be actually just getting an alarm clock so that you can do that. For an evening ritual, for some of you, it's like snacking right before bed.
I'm guilty of that. I
Uh,
can definitely be a snacker at night. So, can I give you a tip on this, Ken, that somebody gave me that has been actually really helpful? So, after dinner, I always like to have a snack like an hour or so after dinner. So,
yeah.
I've now started planning it, first of all. So, it's not just like I'm going to the fridge or the pantry, just like, staring at it, like, what do I want tonight? But I'm planning it out before, like, as part of my meal plan for the week. I'm like, okay, so at night, I'm going to have, an orange and a handful of nuts or I don't know, whatever the snack may be.
That's such a healthy snack.
Yeah, we got some work, wellness goals this quarter, so that's what I'm working on. But once I've, like, done that, I clean up the kitchen a little bit, I tidy up, I turn off the lights intentionally in my kitchen, and I tell myself the kitchen's closed.
That's
So if this
awesome.
is something like if you're a snacker like me, and I'm totally a snacker at night I don't snack actually at all during the day. It's only at night. Um, just have a new rule for yourself that the kitchen's closed.
Hmm.
And, like, literally tidy up, like, as if it were a restaurant, turn the lights off, and the kitchen's closed.
I can tell myself all the time, like, I was like, my last snack will be at a certain time. So I like give myself permission, but after that, it's like, nope, I'm gonna go to bed. I don't want to have anything in my system.
Yeah,
Like that's been super helpful for me. I could tell you one of the worst habits that I had for my evening ritual was that I would have dairy right before I go to bed.
oh, yeah, it's a rough one.
And I don't know, Marissa, if I ever told you this, but like if I ever have dairy past 7 o'clock, I will have the trippiest dreams that night. They're like LSD type dreams. I will wake up and I'm like, what the heck is going on? I don't know if I'm in reality. I feel like it's Inception. Like it's bad.
Well, I don't know what kind of dairy you're having, but I don't think it's the same kind of dairy I'm having. That's hilarious.
I'll give you some the next time I see
Yeah,
you.
seriously. My gosh. Well, this is, you can definitely cut out something that, maybe you want to not have as part of your ritual. But you can also do this if you're something like it's not working out for you and
Yeah.
you want to, like, get this off of your plate. Honestly, like, this can help you reduce the, like, personal guilt too. If you find that you're, like, not doing a certain part of your ritual over and over and over, just cut it out. Like, you're creating the rules for the game that you're playing. I think it's so easy to forget that. We, like, all of a sudden have all these rules that, guess what? We've made up. Like, nobody is coming in and saying you have to do X, Y, and Z every single day. We're setting that expectation for ourselves. So, for instance, if you find that you wanted to go on a walk every single morning as part of your, morning ritual and you're not doing it, just take it out. Like, literally take it off your plate and don't do it. You could do something else instead, or just put that at a different part of your day if it makes sense. Like, I was trying to do that for a long time and it wasn't working. And so now I work out in the afternoon because it works better for me at that time of day. So just get your ritual to work for you. You're not trying to work for your ritual, right? Like, you want your rituals to work for you. So make
Yeah.
sure that they actually are.
That's 100%. I'll give you a great example of that. I remember in my morning ritual, I wanted to read. I was like, oh, I want to like open a book. And for months, I could not do it. And I was like, I'm an avid reader and I just couldn't do it. My brain doesn't work that very well early in the morning. I don't know why. But then I finally just gave myself permission to say, you know what? I'm not going to read other books right
Yeah,
now. Uh, but where in my schedule can I read, even if it's for 10 minutes?
totally.
And what I found is when I put the kids to bed, I'd say my good nights, but then Bethany, my wife, would go down there and she'll say goodnight to them. Well, then there's that 10-minute gap. And I was like, I just started reading while I'm waiting for her to come back up so we could start
Yeah.
chatting. Right. And it was just like so much like this weight lifted off of me. I was like, I feel I'm progressing, in my learning, in my mind domain. And at the same time, I'm like, just feel lively because I was like, ooh, I'm excited. I'm actually accomplishing something.
Like we said, there's no failure here. You're creating what you want this to look like so that it works for you. Okay. Like, that is the goal. That's the whole reason we want you to have these 4 rituals established for yourself, is because these are the things that really help you set up your day, provide you with the energy that you need so that you can go accomplish the things that you want to accomplish, so you can be present in your life, whether that's when you're at work or when you're with your family or with your hanging with your friends or just by yourself. That's the whole reason for these rituals. And you can kind of think of them as like a group of habits that you want to establish to really help you be set up for optimal success. Okay. So let's talk about the last question. But before we get there, I would just want to recap really quick the first 3. So, question number 1 is, how much time do I really have? So, the key here is, like, we want you to be realistic. We don't want this to be an ideal ritual. We want it to be a realistic ritual. Question 2 is, what is absolutely essential? So what are those things that you really need to do that are your non-negotiables? And then question 3, what can I cut? So what do you just need to stop doing that either isn't working or you just don't want to do or you felt obligated to do, but it's not really working for you anymore? So lastly, question 4 is what will make me look forward to this ritual? The second most common mistake when it comes to rituals is filling them with what we should do. We've already talked about this a little bit, but we really want you to fill your rituals with things that you want to do. And especially as you think about your morning and your evening rituals, you've got to look forward to these. If you're somebody like me who maybe isn't the most natural morning person, like I would say that's probably not my nature is to be up super early, although that has grown over time. And one of the ways that I've been able to develop that is by creating a morning ritual that I look forward to. And arguably more important, an evening ritual that helps me wind down at the same time every single night. And I've gotten really good at this. This used to be part of the reason I was totally not a morning person was because I was going to bed at all different hours. There was kind of no rhyme or reason. And sometimes it was, 10 o'clock. Sometimes it was like midnight. It just depended on kind of how I felt or how many TV shows I was watching that night or whatever. And honestly, I got an Aura ring. That's a wearable tracking device that helps specifically for sleep. And it really has been a game changer for me because it shows me all these different data points on my sleep every single night. And I know that when I go to sleep at the same time every night, I feel so much more rested. And the next morning, I'm way more likely to wake up when my alarm goes off than if I go to bed super late. Like last night, I went to a concert and y'all, it was hard to get up this morning. And that hasn't happened in so long because I always go to bed at the same time. So, thinking about your morning and your evening rituals, figuring out what is going to make you look forward to those. So, what are you going to love? What's going to feel like I talked about, like my skincare routine at night? That I love that. I look forward to it every night. I enjoy that process. My acupressure mat, I love. Like, I take that thing on vacation with me wherever I go. And it's kind of a pain to pack, but it's worth it because I look forward to it so much that there'll be times where I'm watching a show and I'm like, no, I just want to go get on my mat. Like I want to be done. I want to go relax. And that's how you should feel about your evening ritual and your morning ritual.
Those are all fantastic. And what I would say is, as you're thinking about all these, right, you're like, which one should I start? Just pick one.
Yes.
Don't try to do all four. That would be way too overwhelming, right? Just pick one of them to start asking these 4 questions. Number 1, how much time do I really have? Number 2, what is absolutely essential? Number 3, what can I cut? And number 4, what makes me look forward to this ritual? And for some of you, if you don't know what that might be, this week, here's what I want you to focus on. Pick the ritual you're struggling with the most and refresh that one. Don't pick more than one ritual, just pick one of them. And if you don't know which one, maybe start with your evening ritual because that's going to help you with the rest of your day, the following day.
Well, for me, that's going to be my morning ritual. Ken, what is the one for you?
Yeah, I think it might be the evening ritual
Okay.
because I'm kind of in this stage right now where I'm going to bed later than I want to,
Yeah,
and it affects my morning when I want to wake up. Because
totally.
my wife puts on the alarm at 4:40, and I'm like,
Woo!
I know.
Bethany, girl.
I was like, please stop it. The other day she wasn't gonna go to the gym. I'm like, can you please not put the alarm for 4:40? Like, please,
Yeah.
pretty please. And she's like, why? It's good. I'm like, no, no, no. I want to sleep in.
Oh my gosh. Okay, can I give you one tip, practical tip before we kind of wrap up and round out
Let's
this?
do it.
This is something kind of talking about what's going to make you look forward to this ritual. As a natural non-morning person, the thing I used to dread the most about my morning ritual was my alarm going off, right? Like that's always the hardest. You guys have probably heard about Mel Robbins, the 5-second rule, where she's like, you basically, I think it's like you count to 5 and then you just get up and get out of bed. All of that's great and fine. For me, the thing that really, really helped the most was I got 2 years ago, I asked for a Hatch alarm clock for Christmas, and I got one. This is an alarm clock that mimics the sunrise. And so it wakes you up. You can have sound on it. I don't have sound on mine. I just have the light. But it gradually it goes from like kind of a red color all the way up to like a bright kind of white light like the sun would be. And it does it over, I think, like a 30 or 20 minute period. So it's super gradual, and it really helps reduce like the melatonin. It helps you actually like wake up naturally rather than having that jarring alarm clock. So if your morning ritual is something that you're struggling with, I want to encourage you, check out the Hatch alarm. They're not super cheap, but they're totally worth it. And it's been really helpful for me for helping me get up at the same time every day and not feel just like I'm being shaken awake. So that's my final tip for y'all.
That's a fantastic tip. Let's end on that. Thanks for joining us on Focus on This.
This is the most productive podcast on the internet. So please share it with your friends and make sure you go on whatever podcast app you're listening on. Take a few minutes right now. Leave us a review. It means the world to us to be able to see your feedback, what you're getting out of the show. We want to hear from you too. What do you want us to talk about? Are there any episodes you want us to do? Those reviews just help us reach more and more people with our show. So it means the world if you would go rate and review our show.
We'll be here next week with another great episode.
So here we go. Until then,
stay focused.